On today's episode of Locked On Mariners, the Jesse Winker trade is complete. We now know who the player to be named later heading from Seattle to Cincinnati is. We'll be telling you who and if his inclusion changed our minds on the trade at all, plus a preview of the Mariners catching situation and two more players we're very high on heading into the 2022 season. All that coming up here on Locked On M's. Let's go.
Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, and this is Locked On Mariners. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Ty Gonzalez, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patnode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, it's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon, where we talk about the Mariners even more and also get into some non-baseball talk twice a week. Visit patreon.com/control the zone for more information on that if you are interested. And if this is your first time joining us here, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you listen to this. We greatly appreciate it. And we're also now on YouTube. So if you're watching this, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and tell your friends. Most importantly, I think that's what YouTubers say now that, Colby, you and I are YouTubers now, technically. And help us get the subscriber count up, though. I think we're at 64 now. I think we picked up like 15 or so subscribers yesterday after our first video. Help us. Let's get to 100. Let's get to 100. Let's go. All right. So let's get into our first topic of the day. Like I said earlier, we now know who the player to be named later heading from the Mariners to the Reds in the Jesse Winker trade is, and I was under the impression at first that it was going to be one of the international guys who had recently signed, maybe someone like Gabriel Gonzalez or Starling Aguilar or someone like that. Instead, it's actually right-handed pitching prospect Connor Phillips, who was drafted in the competitive balance round B in 2020 of that draft, and out of the JUCO circuit. And he's heading to Cincinnati to complete the trade. So the complete trade is Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez over to the Mariners for Brandon Williamson, Connor Phillips, Jake Fraley, and Justin Dunn. Colby, we had said at the time of the trade that this was a 70 grade trade if we're grading it on the 2080 scale for the Mariners. Obviously, losing Williamson stings, but Dunn and Fraley, those guys might not have factored into the major league roster anyway, so you didn't really care about that. Adding Phillips to this, though, does that change your mind? Does that lower the grade at all on this deal for the Mariners for you?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I would still give it like a really solid 65. Phillips is a good prospect. He is somebody that you and I were pretty high on. But there's a lot of risk in Connor Phillips. The stuff is pretty good. Mostly the fastball is pretty good, but it's not an elite fastball. The velocity is very good, but it's pretty straight. There's not a lot of movement to it. And the off-speed stuff, it needs work. And Phillips is a guy who's at least a year away, probably two. But there is certainly upside there if the Reds can develop that second and third pitch. Pretty safe bet he's going to end up in the bullpen as a floor at least, but there's a decent chance that he's the number 4 starter somewhere down the line, and guys like this pop all the time, so there's a possibility he's more than that. But from the Mariners' perspective, Phillips is a guy who they like, but he's not going to help them for the next at least 2 years, more than likely, and they traded from an area of depth. Now, that depth took a hit because they traded Williamson and Phillips here. So they can't go too crazy trading more pitching prospects, but they're still in pretty good shape. Even if you ignore the top guys, you're still looking at guys like Adam Macko are here. Sam Carlson's still here. There's a lot of
Michael Morales,
guys,
Bryce Miller.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of guys who are kind of in this same tier as Connor Phillips, who are probably on a very similar timeline as well. So it's it's a little bit surprising because I too was under the impression that it was going to be an international guy. I believe we were told that, and it ended up being very much not. So it was a little surprising, but at the end of the day, the trade is still very good for Seattle. And it makes a little more sense now for Cincinnati because they can be really patient with Phillips and just kind of see what he is.
And it's possible the player to be named later list that they gave the Reds included some of the international guys plus Phillips, and they just went with Phillips. So we don't know. I'm kind of surprised that they already made their pick so quickly. I thought this was something that might linger for a couple of months, but yeah, clearly they got the information that they needed, talking about the Reds here. So overall, yeah, it doesn't change my mind either on the trade, really. It may take it down from a 70 to a 65, but overall, we're talking about a guy that, a pipeline rated as the Mariners' 15th best prospect. On Monday, we talked about that. I disagreed with that. I felt that he should be no lower than 11, but still, you didn't have to give up Harry Ford. You didn't have to give up, Levi Stout, etc. I know this sounds mean. I'm not being mean. I do like Connor Phillips, but frankly, I really don't care about losing Connor Phillips in this deal. It doesn't change anything for me. It sucks to lose him in general, but considering the fact that you just got one of the best hitters in baseball, and for him partly, along with Eugenio Suarez, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I can totally live with that. Kind of interesting trade tree here. I always find trade trees fascinating. Here with Phillips, and this kind of started, Phillips's inclusion in this deal kind of started back in 2018. May 25th, 2018, the Mariners traded Tommy Romero and Andrew Moore to the Rays for Alex Colome and Denard Span. I'm sure everyone watching or listening remembers that. And then later on that year, November 30th, 2018, the Mariners traded Alex Colome to the White Sox for Omar Narvaez. And then a year later, December 5th, 2019, the Mariners traded Narvaez to the Brewers for right-handed pitching prospect Adam Hill and the 2020 comp round B pick that was used to take Phillips. And now Phillips has been traded in the deal that helped the Mariners get Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez. So what I'm saying is here, they got Jesse Winker for Tommy Romero and Andrew Moore. I am not saying that. Don't get it twisted. But chills. Dipoto did it again, right?
Yes. Yeah. Trade trees are a lot of fun. They're not always useful, but they are a lot of fun, and that was kind of one of the bigger deals. So it's really fun to track that. Another pretty good one is the Gene Segura trade tree. That one's got quite a few tentacles as well. So yeah, it's it's a fun little exercise, but it just goes to show you, man, you never know. You make a deal and you never know how it's ultimately going to impact the squad. And it might take 4 or 5 years down the road before it all pays out. And it's not like, Jerry Dipoto has this planned. Like he's like, all right, I'm going to trade him. I'm going to trade Narvaez here. And then I'm going to be able to trade Phillips for, Winker. They're not thinking about it like that. They're just thinking about the next deal they can make. But it is fun to look back and say, okay, so how did the Mariners end up with Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez in 2022? And we got to go all the way back to 2018, and we start with Tommy Romero and Andrew Moore.
Yeah.
Baseball's crazy, man.
It's certainly wild. And yeah, that's really the only trade tree. I mean, well, you could have the Fraley and Dunn deals involved in this as well, but those guys are kind of just add-ons. They're throw-ins to this deal. I would feel. For me personally, I don't know how or why or if those two guys move the needle that much for the Reds. I guess clearly they did, but I don't know why really in this deal when we're talking again about one of the best hitters in all of baseball and Jesse Winker. But
Jerry's decision to trade Edwin Diaz, even if you want to trace back further, to move Diaz to the bullpen where he would be dominant, has netted the team now through the trade tree, Jared Kelnick, Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez.
Chills.
Oh, and Jake Shiner, who is going to hit the walk-off game-winning home run in Game 7 of the World Series.
Of course. Yeah. How could I forget?
No, Jake Shiner was a different trade. He's not involved.
That's the Segura tree, and then then Fraley came over in the Zunino deal,
trade.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a Zunino tree here. We have the Segura tree here, and we have the Colome, Romero, Narvaez, all those guys' tree involved in this. A lot of actually like big trades in Mariners or in Jerry DiPoto's tenure kind of involved in this.
It'd kind of be fun to see if we could make a trade tree with all of Jerry's trades. You know what I mean? Just like a big like the family tree of DiPoto trades and like.
I think that's a content idea. I think that's a podcast idea right there. Let us know in the comments below or on Twitter.
That's gonna take months.
Yeah, that's gonna take work. But if you're interested in hearing that or us doing that, let us know, because I don't want to put in all that work if you guys do not care, frankly. All right, so we're gonna be talking about the catchers, which is kind of a big topic and a big question mark on the Mariners roster right now. But real quick, reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I started taking Athletic Greens because I just don't have the time to research every single amazing thing that's going to make my body feel great, and I'm sure neither do you. So what is Athletic Greens? Well, with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. It also only costs you less than $3 per day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. And for every purchase, Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make things easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. And just a reminder to check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts, just like us. So, Colby, we've been talking about the catchers all offseason long. The catching market in general was a barren wasteland this offseason, aside from a couple of names. So the Mariners didn't really have a ton of opportunities to get better. And because the free agent market was such a barren wasteland, it means that a lot of teams are more incentivized to request overpays for their guys via trade. So that just wasn't really an option for the Mariners. So they're rocking with Tom Murphy, Luis Torrens, Cal Raleigh to start the season. We'll see which of that, what combination of those three guys makes it. It could be all three guys, especially with the roster expansion to 28 guys for the first month of the year. But the big name here, and this is a guy that you picked as one of your flag players, which we're going to do more of those later on in the show. But the guy that you picked on Monday, Luis Torrens, there's obviously been some big questions about how he can perform defensively. Obviously, we know that he can hit quite a bit. But so far, he's looked pretty decent. So how does Torrens and how does Murphy and Raleigh fit into this complicated little catcher puzzle the Mariners have right now?
Well, let's start here. Cal Raleigh has wheels. He legged out a triple today.
Yeah, he did.
So, clearly it tells you all you need to know.
He should have had a home run, though. It bounced right off the top of the wall. It was pretty unfortunate. Yeah, clearly.
Yep, weight room.
Big dumper. He's lacking a little bit.
Yeah. He slimmed down a little bit, just a bit more cardio, a little more weights, a little less cardio there. But
Sure.
I'm one to talk. Yeah, it is kind of a unique situation here because the Mariners don't have a clear number one catcher. Most teams don't, so it's not all that unusual. But the thing with the Mariners catcher position is that it has a shot to be a black hole, which is not good.
Yeah.
Murphy was better in the second half of last year, really from about June on. He was about, I think, an 85 WRC plus from that point on, which is, again, it's below average, but it's workable. You can live with it. Cal Raleigh was just a disaster at the plate last year. He desperately needs time down in AAA, and Luis Torrens as well. We all saw him play defense last year. It was some of the worst catcher defense I've ever seen in my life. So he's looked better beyond the plate so far this year, but again, that's 20 innings. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, it's kind of a dark hole, and there's really nothing in the system that's all that close to even push this. So the catcher situation is one of the biggest areas of concern for this Mariners team. They need to get better there, and getting better could mean that Luis Torrens is a 40 grade catcher instead of a 25 grade catcher like he was last year, and the bat makes up for the lack of defense. Or maybe it'd be great if Tom Murphy turned into 2019 Tom Murphy. That would be amazing. Yeah. Or maybe Cal Raleigh takes significant steps forward. So they don't necessarily have to fix this by bringing in somebody from the outside, but as of right now, this is probably the weakest position on the Mariners roster overall. I mean, it's not even like Raleigh and Murphy are plus defenders behind the plate. They're fringe average at best. So, the Mariners could really use some catching help, but it's going to have to come from within because, like you mentioned, there's just nothing in free agency, and trading for a guy right now is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked about this off air the other day. I would trade a lot for Sean Murphy or even Carson Kelly, honestly. Is that realistic? Who knows? But yeah, if I'm the Mariners, that's probably, I know a lot of the focus right now is on getting another starter involved here or, what have you. But I don't know. Catcher to me, I think would be priority number one. If I'm Jerry Dipoto, if I'm the Mariners, I just feel like that is a huge area where you're lacking potentially both defensively and offensively, and that's a problem. You can live with a catcher who's above average defensively but below average offensively, and look, not a lot of catchers are good at hitting, right? It's pretty rare when you can find guys that can do both. That's why it's such an expensive commodity. But yeah, I just you need to do better than what you have right now, and I don't really know what the path is to that. For me, it would be Murphy or Kelly, Sean Murphy, that is, or Carson Kelly, but I don't know if that's plausible. Maybe Wilson Contreras is available, but how much are you willing to pay for 1 year of Wilson Contreras? That's the other thing that you got to take into account here. So, with the current catching structure, I'll ask you this. If the Mariners finish the season with some combination of the three guys that we've been talking about, Raleigh, Murphy, and Torrens, how do you feel about the Mariners? Are they a playoff team, or what's happened that has led to those three guys still being around? Or two of those three guys at least being around?
Hopefully it means two of the three of them are having a good quality major league season. It's one of those things. We know Jerry's not going to sit on his hands. So if there's an issue at the catcher position, he's going to try and address it. But try is kind of the operative word here. And if a team like the Cubs is still in it in July, or a team like, Arizona just won't move Kelly, or Murphy from Oakland won't move him, is there a veteran on a 1 year deal on a bad team that would make sense? Not necessarily a 1 year deal, but you know what I mean? Who's that catcher on a bad team that might be available in July? I doubt Mitch Garver's available because the Rangers I don't know what they're doing exactly. Maybe that's a guy though. You just kind of look at it and you say, okay, where am I going to find this catcher? So they really need one of these guys to step up at least and be able to handle 3-4 starts a week. I feel like I'm pretty close to the point where I would just make Luis Torrens the everyday guy. Well, every day for a catcher,
Right.
which means like what, 4 starts a week at catcher and maybe 1 at DH, and just roll with that because the defense is bad. Like, don't get me wrong, but the bat is just so much better than what you get now.
And let's be real
probably a
about
better
it. Tom
trade-off.
Murphy has regressed defensively. So
Yeah, he's a 45.
yeah. So it's like, how much of a difference is Tom Murphy's defense to Luis Torrens's defense relative to the difference between their offensive profiles? Like, you got to weigh that, So it's like, how much am I willing to risk here on the defensive end for the offensive upside, which Torrens is much higher than Murphy. Obviously, Murphy, had a great 2019 offensively. He missed all of 2020 due to injury. 2021. Slow start, as you mentioned, but did hit well against lefties at least. Like, he is usable, I would think, but man, you see some of his at bats; they are rough. The swing and miss stuff in the zone, particularly, is it's suboptimal to be nice about it. It's not good. You can't live with that for a good portion of your season if that's the way that he's going to perform, frankly. Like, if you are a team that is planning on contending, this is just not good enough. This is not good enough. So unless, Cal Raleigh comes out of nowhere and is able to actually look useful at the plate, he's probably the guy. And then Torrens is probably going to be coming in, once or twice. And because I would say that Raleigh is better defensively than Torrens, but it's just, you need Raleigh to hit. You need Raleigh to be able to hit and not look completely useless at the plate, which he did for most of last year. And that's why I've been hammering the point home that he should probably start the year in Tacoma. I know he had a great looking hit off of Drew Smiley today. That's fine. That's great. But yeah, he needs to, he should probably start the year in AAA. And then they just roll with Murphy and Torrens for the time being, and hopefully Murphy can give you something. But if not, and as long as Torrens looks, he looks at least competent behind the plate this season, I would say maybe it's time to move on from Tom Murphy, because you're not moving off from Torrens with the potential of the bat. He doesn't have any minor league options left, so you're going to have to sell him for pennies on the dollar if you're moving on from him. You might even have to DFA him. That's just not an option that I want to take right now. So we'll see how they handle it, but it's a little sketchy right now behind the plate for the Mariners. So see how it all works out. We're going to be continuing Flag Week here in just a moment, picking a couple more players that we are high on. Real quick reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein. So replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. So go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Now compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And there are so many flavors like mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they will make it. It will be delicious and it will be good for you, most importantly. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. So again, that is LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. All right, so we are continuing Flag Week. We are planning our flags and some Mariners players that we are high on, we believe in. We think they're going to be great in 2022. On Monday, I picked Matt Brash. Yesterday, I picked Eugenio Suarez. On Monday, you picked Luis Torrens. And then yesterday, you picked Abraham Toro. You had the second pick yesterday. You get the first pick today. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to go with probably one that most people would pick. Logan Gilbert. I know he got roughed up yesterday a little bit there. Was it yesterday, day before? Either way.
Yesterday, yeah.
Got roughed up. It happens. It's nothing to be that concerned about. We watched what Gilbert did last year, pitching in the big leagues as a rookie with essentially one pitch, a fastball. And we've already seen him this year that the slider is a little bit better. It's a little bit firmer. The changeup, he's completely changed the grip on that. He's throwing it a little bit more. Saw a couple nice curveballs yesterday even, so he hasn't completely scrapped that pitch. I wouldn't expect him to use it much, but he still does have it in his back pocket if he needs to steal a strike or something like that. I think you're going to see better off-speed command and control, and I think the fastball is going to be just as good as it was last year. And if you combine all that up, there's a chance we're looking at Logan Gilbert as a 10-plus K per nine guy with sub-3 walk rates per nine. And somebody who's, going to post a mid-threes FIP, mid-threes ERA, and probably come pretty darn close to a 4-win season. By comparison's sake, last year, Robbie Ray was a 3.9 win pitcher by FWAR. So, yeah, I feel like Logan Gilbert, there's a good chance, less than 50%, but still a pretty good chance that Gilbert ends the year as the Mariners' actual number one starter. I think he's headed that way, and I think this might be the year that he kind of announces himself as a legitimate, top of the rotation arm. Doesn't mean there won't be bumps in the road, and obviously I could be wrong, but it just feels like you watch what this kid does, the preparation he goes through, the intelligence with which he pitches. He grinds. He's very into the spin rates and the biomechanics. The dude just wants to be great, and he was pretty darn good last year as a rookie, again with one pitch, including being very good in September in the middle of a playoff run. And now he's already made some changes. He's already tweaked some things, and the stuff already looks even better than it did last year. I'm buying Logan Gilbert, sure.
All right, well, I'm going to pick the guy that he was called up with last May. Jared Kelnick. I mean, look, I know he was terrible. He was terrible last year when he was first called up. He had to get sent down. He got called back up and was still not great when he got called back up. But in September, when all hope was seemingly lost for the Mariners, at one point, I mean, we made an episode titled, "It's a Wrap. This is over." I think it was early September that came out. I think it was after they lost they lost 4 of 6 to the Royals and the Diamondbacks at that time, and yet they were able to control their own destiny at one point there towards the end of the stretch, and Jared Kelnick was a huge part of that. In the last month plus of the season, Kelnick slashed 248, 331, 524 with a 135 WRC plus. He struck out a fine 24.6% clip. He walked 10.2% of the time. I think he was third on the team in WRC plus during that month. I mean, he started to figure it out. He made some changes. His stance got back to, what it was when he was down in A-ball, back when the Mariners traded for him, back when he had his first year in West Virginia, Modesto, etc. He just looked more comfortable. He looked more comfortable at the plate. This spring, he's come back. He's gotten bigger. He's not going to be a center fielder. Like, let's just be real about that. He's not a center fielder anymore. He's just too big for it, muscle-wise. He was bad last year in center field, mostly working his way back instead of moving forward. He was actually pretty good moving forward. You have talked about that quite a bit on here and on CTZ as well. So ideally, he's playing in left field, and that seems to be what is going to happen with Julio Rodriguez probably making the opening day roster as the opening day center fielder for the Mariners. By the way, Julio had a great leadoff double today off of Drew Smiley, your boy, Drew Smiley, today.
Yeah, things have gone downhill for him since.
Yeah.
Cost the Mariners at least 3 runs at this point. So.
Oh, really? What else happened? I didn't.
Yeah,
hear.
well, you know about the base running blunder.
Yeah,
he lost the ball in the sun, and it led to 2 runs being scored. Yeah. So also he looked quite overwhelmed in his second at bat. Struck out on 3 pitches, just kind of like without really even trying to shorten up or anything like that. So. Yeah, it's been a little bit downhill for Julio today, but I mean, overall, still insanely talented, and still probably the opening day center fielder.
Let's chalk it up to the base running gaff as messing with his psyche for the rest of the afternoon. Let's just say that.
Well, that's not a good sign.
Well,
that just took him out of the entire game. Oh,
yeah. Let's just say that it's for one day and one day only. How about that? Sound good, Julio? I know you're listening right now. So back to Kelnick. Yeah, I think the way that he built off of last year, and now he's come back, he's made some more changes. He looks bigger, which is a little concerning. The batting stance is different again. I'm not a swing guy, obviously, but I assume there's also some mechanical changes that come along with the stance change as well. He hasn't looked great this spring, but ultimately, you and I, we don't really put much stock into anything that happens, at least from a statistical standpoint in spring. He's also been kind of unlucky. He's put some pretty good drives on balls. There was that one ball where he hit it to deep center field in Peoria, and Stephen Kwan, center fielder for the Guardians, made just an amazing over-the-shoulder catch. Stuff like that has happened to him this spring. I'm not concerned about it. I think he's going to be at least solid for the Mariners this year, but I could see him looking more like the player we saw in September. Maybe not over the course of a full season, but I think we'll still see bits and pieces of that maybe over a more extended period of time, and start to see a Jared Kelnick that looks more like the Kelnick that we ultimately expected. Obviously, his profile has changed quite a bit, but so we got to adjust for that a little bit. But I think he's going to be near the top of home run leaders for the Mariners this year. I think he's going to hit for quite a bit of power, and he's still got speed. He's still athletic. He's still he's muscle bound to the 10th degree. But he's still an incredibly athletic guy, still an incredibly talented guy. I believe in Jared Kelnick, frankly, and I think he's going to be pretty good this year. So anything you want to add before we hop off here for the day?
Maybe skip the weight room once a week, Jared. Perhaps some yoga. Just you don't have to play baseball with grinding your molars, and it just kind of feels like that's what Jared's doing again.
Dude looks like a middle linebacker.
Like, he legitimately looks like he could run for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Behind a pretty good offensive line. So, like, it's just, I mean, yeah, it's impressive, but it's not impressive? Hitting a $182 with a .225 on base percentage. So we'll see if it works. He's also just 22. He doesn't even turn 23 until mid-July, so no reason to panic either way. But yeah, it's
might be time to lean up a little bit. Get on the Julio Rodriguez diet.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out for him. But yeah, he has had some bad luck this spring, and strikeouts are a little bit concerning. 6 strikeouts in 20 at bats. You can do the math there. 30%. Not great, but I think ultimately he'll be okay.
Yeah, it's just a lot of national folks right now are writing him off. They're saying he's a bust. They're saying I've seen a lot of articles where he's like 5 players I'm down on and 5 players I'm high on, and pretty much every single one of those lists, Jared Kelnick is in the down portion, and it's just let's calm down. I know the first half of his major league debut was dreadful. The second half, particularly September, and the few games that he played in October were a lot better than that. He was a quality major league hitter in the month of September. So let's see him build off of that. I think he can. So on that note, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Mariners. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DANEGNZLZ. And Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB, where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.